We like to look at highly successful people and comfort ourselves with a single word: luck. We tell ourselves that they were just in the right place at the right time, that the stars aligned for them, or that they possess some magical advantage we don't have. But by attributing their success to random fate, we completely absolve ourselves of the responsibility to act. The latest groundbreaking behavioral research from Stanford reveals a truth that is far more challenging. Luck is not a lottery ticket dropped from the sky. It is a predictable, measurable byproduct of how you train your mind to interact with the world. Right now, a massive psychological shift is happening, and the clock is ticking for anyone left relying on old, passive mindsets. If you are sitting around waiting for your big break, you are actively burning through your most valuable asset: time. Science proves that what we call good fortune is actually the direct result of psychological clarity, intentional focus, and environmental awareness. When you learn to systematically rewire your brain, you stop wishing for opportunities and start engineering them. The choice to take control of your environment cannot wait for tomorrow. The market, the culture, and your potential are moving forward right now, and you cannot afford to be left behind waiting for a miracle. Men frequently treat life like a giant casino, falsely comforting themselves with the belief that winning or losing is entirely a matter of random chance. We watch our peers succeed and chalk it up to genetic lotteries or lucky breaks, because doing so protects our egos from our own inaction. From a man's psychological perspective, outsourcing our destiny to fate is a subtle form of surrender. It allows us to avoid the rigid accountability required to build a predictable system of personal growth. Women observe this passive reliance on luck and immediately recognize a dangerous lack of direction and internal leadership. They are not inspired by a man who floats aimlessly through life, hoping the wind will eventually blow him into a position of security. When a man refuses to master his own mindset, a woman senses that he has abandoned his responsibility to build a stable future, leaving her to realize that she cannot safely build a life with someone whose survival plan relies entirely on a miracle. The architecture of your mindset dictates whether you operate as a victim of circumstance or a master of design. Every single day, you choose to view luck as a mysterious force rather than a repeatable, scientific sequence of behaviors. You degrade your own agency. You fall directly into the trap of believing that your environment owns you, completely blind to the reality that a disciplined mind alters the very fabric of its surroundings. A man's focus is his ultimate weapon, yet many men blind themselves to the world by hyperfixating on their current struggles instead of clarifying their future vision. We tend to operate with a survival mindset, keeping our heads down and grinding away, which inadvertently causes us to miss the unexpected breakthroughs happening right beside us. From a man's psychological perspective, we assume that working harder is the only answer, completely ignoring the fact that without an intentional, finely tuned internal radar, we will continuously walk right past the very opportunities we are praying for. Women possess an intuitive awareness that notices when a man lacks this critical clarity of sight and purpose. They are not looking for a partner who blindly reacts to life's chaos like a leaf in the wind. They crave the security of a man who can actively read the room and spot potential where others see nothing. When a man's internal radar is clouded by self-doubt or distraction, a woman senses a profound vulnerability, knowing that a leader who cannot spot hidden opportunities can never successfully guide his family or his business through changing times. The neurological mechanism of focus dictates that you only ever see what your brain is actively looking to find. Every single day you allow your mind to stay cluttered with past regrets or passive complaints, you are filtering out the luck that Stanford science proves is already surrounding you. You create a psychological blind spot that keeps you trapped in mediocrity, proving that it is not a lack of opportunities holding you back, but your refusal to tune your mind to perceive them. Men frequently paralyze themselves by waiting for a perfect alignment of conditions before they commit to taking a bold step forward. We mislabel this hesitation as prudence, telling ourselves that we are just being smart, calculating, and patient providers who need all the data before pulling the trigger. From a man's psychological perspective, this need for absolute certainty is actually a sophisticated defense mechanism designed to shield our egos from the potential shame of a public failure, transforming our passive waiting into a noble virtue while our true potential slowly slips away. Women possess a keen understanding of this behavioral stall and intuitively recognize that a man who waits for perfection is a man who is governed by fear. They are not looking for a flawless strategy. They look for the raw courage of a man who possesses the momentum to move even when the path ahead is entirely unlit. When a man continuously hesitates to act, a woman experiences a deep-seated anxiety, realizing that a partner who cannot move without a guarantee can never build the momentum required to capitalize on the lucky breaks that science proves only favor the active. The fundamental law of engineered luck dictates that momentum must always precede clarity. Every single day you spend sitting on the sidelines refining your plan without executing it, you are actively conditioning your brain to choose safety over growth. You are signaling to yourself that your fear of making a mistake is far greater than your desire to win, reinforcing a toxic internal belief that you are not yet equipped to handle the realities of the game. Men often isolate themselves in a misguided attempt to prove their independence, mistakenly believing that a true leader must carry the entire weight of his world completely alone. We buy into the toxic myth of the self-made man, grinding away in solitary confinement because our masculine pride tells us that asking for collaboration is a sign of vulnerability. From a man's psychological perspective, we isolate to protect our status, failing to realize that by cutting ourselves off from a powerful tribe, we are actively restricting the flow of luck and serendipity that Stanford research proves only occurs through high-value human connection. Women naturally understand the profound architecture of community and can immediately see the strategic flaw of an isolated man. They do not want a lone wolf who is constantly running out of resources because he refuses to build strategic alliances and deep, trust-based relationships with peers. When a man operates entirely in a vacuum, a woman senses an underlying rigidity and lack of social intelligence, realizing that a man who cannot build an ecosystem of mutual support will eventually collapse under the weight of his own isolation. The network effect proves that what the world calls good fortune is actually a social currency generated by the quality of your circle. Every single day you choose to protect your ego by avoiding rooms where you are not the smartest person. You are actively starving your mind of new perspectives and unexpected breakthroughs. You create a psychological barrier that repels success, completely blind to the reality that a deliberately engineered environment will always pull opportunities toward you far faster than raw talent ever could. Men frequently view modern chaos and unexpected disruptions as personal attacks on their stability, reacting with frustration rather than recognizing them as the ultimate testing ground for leadership. We design rigid plans and buy into the illusion that a successful life is a straight, predictable line, which leaves us psychologically shattered when the market, the economy, or our circumstances suddenly shift. From a man's perspective, a setback is often internalized as a crushing blow to his competence as a provider, causing him to retreat into defensive anxiety rather than understanding that Stanford behavioral science proves luck belongs to those who can pivot with speed. We mistake rigid control for strength, failing to see that true resilience is the ability to look at a chaotic situation not as a threat to our survival, but as a blank canvas full of hidden advantages waiting to be claimed. Women possess a keen, long-term perspective that evaluates a man's worth not by how he performs on a perfect day, but by how he comports himself when everything goes completely wrong. They are not inspired by a fair-weather leader who loses his composure, blames the system, or freezes when the pressure intensifies. They respect the deep grounding of a man who looks chaos in the eye and uses it as fuel to innovate. When a man allows external volatility to dictate his internal state, a woman senses a profound instability, realizing that a partner who cannot convert modern friction into a competitive advantage will always expose his team, his family, and his future to the mercy of the elements. The resilience factor demands a fundamental psychological shift, where we stop demanding that the world become easier and instead demand that our capacity to adapt becomes greater. Every single day you choose to complain about the instability of your environment instead of finding the hidden opportunity within the disruption, you are voluntarily surrendering your competitive edge. You are training your brain to seek the safety of a past that no longer exists, completely blind to the reality that the luck you are searching for is hiding inside the very uncertainty you are trying so desperately to avoid. A man's psychology is fundamentally transformed the moment he stops viewing his life as a series of random accidents and accepts absolute responsibility for the reality he is actively creating. For too long, we default to the comfort of the passenger seat, blaming our upbringing, our economy, or a simple lack of good fortune for the stagnation of our ambitions. From a man's perspective, taking ultimate ownership is an aggressive psychological shift that destroys the convenient victim narrative we use to shield ourselves from the pain of underachievement. We must realize that Stanford behavioral science proves luck is not an accident of birth. It is an engineered consequence of choices made by men who refuse to let external circumstances dictate their internal worth. When we transition from a passive observer to the deliberate architect of our fate, we finally stop asking the world for permission and start building a foundation that cannot be shaken by outside forces. Women possess a powerful clarity that immediately identifies whether a man is truly driving his life or just along for the ride. They are not drawn to a man who constantly points fingers at the universe when things fall apart, nor do they trust a partner who relies on hope as a strategy for survival. When a man steps up and takes complete ownership of his trajectory, a woman experiences a profound sense of security because she sees a leader who defines his own direction, regardless of the weather. A woman deeply respects the man who owns his mistakes, rectifies his path, and builds a vision based on unshakable self-reliance rather than a fragile hope for a lucky break. The ultimate ownership of your reality marks the exact moment you realize that no one is coming to save you and no one is going to hand you success on a silver platter. Every single day, you choose to complain about your current position instead of aggressively redesigning your daily habits. You are voluntarily giving away your power to the crowd. You are choosing to remain a spectator in your own life, entirely blind to the truth that the luck you desire is waiting for you to pick up the tools and start building.